This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Dr. Fredah Mainah. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well. We've been podcasting since 2016. We've got over 1,200 episodes out in the world, and we're happy to have you on for the first time on our show. Before we get to the heart of your story, we always ask any guest a couple of questions before we get to that. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
One thing that motivates me is because I'm a lifelong learner. So I always want to be the better version of myself every day. So that has been my motivation since I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I know you're a doctor and you've done a lot of work to get to that point, to get to that place. What made you want to get into like life coaching?
I was a teacher and a professor, and so coaching just came naturally. And then I realized now my students have matured and they're adults. I want to do something for them. So I've taught them in high school, I've taught them at university. So it's like I'm following their timeline.
Oh, you're just following your student, helping to be able to still mentor.
Yes, yes.
But it's kind of like you got to pay it forward. That's what I like about being teachers and coaches. I'm a musician, but like you work with a producer, they're like a master music teacher.
Right.
And so like what you want to do is like, you pay it forward with the younger people. I'm 57. If I work with a younger artist, you kind of take the benefit of your experience. If you've been playing 25, 30 years,
yeah,
then you show somebody who just started like, well, here's some things you can learn. Here's some approaches.
And like you said, it becomes, it doesn't even become like something you're doing. It just becomes something that you're living. Because I see high school students that I taught way back when following me on Facebook and still asking me life questions. When they were younger, they would ask me young people questions. Now they're asking me adult people questions.
Yeah, because that's where they are.
So that therefore becoming a coach was just following the river of life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to kind of follow the path that life gives you.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of times some people want to hold on to certain moments
right
in their life, and like you might like, I know some people like they felt like they had their phoenix in high school or their phoenix in college, and then everything went down. And I always look at like every day. I'm a cancer survivor, so every day that I'm here is a big win to me.
It's a big win.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you just feel like, and then you the limitations you put on yourself is like, if I can beat cancer, why can't I do this?
Exactly.
So it's this mindset that like, yeah, it might take a little longer to get somewhere, but I think some people are into this idea like if you all or none, or like they got to go from 0 to 100. And I've always been more incremental.
Yeah.
Like if I can get there in my own time, like, even though somebody wants me to be there like right now, if I still am working toward it, then I'm still winning.
Exactly. And just like you said, it reminded me of incremental steps when you're growing. And if you beat cancer, then if you can live your life like from 0 point to 1, there's so many little steps to get to 1. If you look like if you use a ruler on a centimeter, you will see that there's so many centimeters in there before you can get to 1, or millicentimeters before you get to 1. Meaning there's so many steps, there's so many paths that you could choose. And for you, having survived life, because there are many cancers, I don't want to compare your, health issue to my career issue. But, they're all paths that we are struggling with, and they all have their own challenges. Like for me, as a woman who was allowed to go to school,
yeah,
if I was allowed to go to school, I was going to run with that. That was the crack of the door that opened for me, and I never stopped. So I went to school, studied everything, got all the way to the epitome of the academy, and yeah.
Was that a hard thing where you were coming from? Was that not expected?
It was not expected. Most of my girlfriends didn't go beyond grade 8. We didn't even have grade 12. And for me to have accomplished that and gone to high school and gone to college and even being able to get a PhD and also be given an honorary PhD. I mean, I'm doing it for all the sisters in my life.
Yeah, I think that's really important because sometimes, the way the roles that men and women have in society, you know, certain folks, the social structure can be very, um, you know,
Limiting.
limiting and repressive, and not
Yes,
allow people, being, in
yes.
America as a black man,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain ceiling that, like, people just look at you and they say, well, you're not meant for management. You're
Right.
not meant for the C-suite. It's just this mindset, and if you have to push to get to be accepted, and then
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "You're the exception." It's like, I shouldn't be the exception.
And actually, you're celebrating a lot of us, because I was sharing with someone else and I was telling them, I go now where I am celebrated, not where I'm tolerated.
Yeah,
Because in most places, the first thing someone wants to ask is about my skin. What has that got to do with anything? Or
yeah,
my accent. What has that got to do with anything? You know?
yeah,
So
they make it everything when it shouldn't be
it
anything.
shouldn't be. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
it's like it's a judgment of, your name. Like, in the Americas, like, if you have an African or an African American sounding name,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to get into management or into certain roles, like, I'm
Right.
in IT, and most of the time, when I've been in IT for 30 years, most of the I've worked in Tokyo, I've worked in different places. Most of the time I walk in the room, there's hardly anybody who looks like me unless they're from India. I, and
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 I tell it as if it's a joke, that I never knew I was black until I came to America,
yeah,
because
well,
it
that's
was
the
never a
thing.
point
Yeah,
of
they let you
reference.
know. They let you know. But yeah, it was amazing when I worked in Japan, that it was weird that people told me I was going to have a hard time there. And I said, like, after spending 2 years there from 2004 to 2006, I felt like a human being there. I was in Tokyo for 2 years with my daughter, went to a Japanese, like, kindergarten and like a preschool, and we
Wow.
were treated like, compared to the times that I lived in Northeastern Connecticut,
Right.
in Massachusetts, and I actually had a better time for the
In
2 years I
Japan
spent in Tokyo than I
than
ever
in your
had
own
in
country.
America. And people would have told me that that wasn't going to be the case, but it was like, I was not given the constraints, or I didn't have the kind of problems I run into
Yeah.
socially in the States, even to this
Hmm.
day, and I'm like, people are like, it blows their mind, because they're like, whoa, you would have a hard time. It's like, no.
No. Unfortunately for me, it was the other way around. I was called a foreigner even in my own country.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I moved to another country. I was still called a foreigner. I came to the US. Now I am an alien.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Because
it's not
instead
so
of being
great for
called an
immigrants.
immigrant, they call us aliens. And it's like, what?
Yeah, my wife's from Barbados,
Ah,
and so, like, the West Indies, and yeah, maybe it's always been this thing where, people are like, "Well, what's your accent? Where's that from?" You
exactly.
know?
And instead of us relating as humans and having like a conversation like this we're having with you, immediately someone asks you, where is your accent from? They've already put a barrier,
Yeah, it's like,
you
why
know?
can't you listen to what I'm saying? What if I have a good idea?
Yeah.
What
And
what
first and foremost, we are both humans. The rest are details, and they are
Yeah,
necessary details.
yeah, I don't know, it's just like, we live in such a world that doesn't seem to have learned the lessons of the '30s.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff that's repeating, like, I'm a big fan. I was a political science major, I was a sociology major. I was big into like the liberal arts, which kinda teach you, like, how to learn, how to
Hmm.
do research, how to actually think, critical thinking,
Yes.
and we get people who gets caught up in, not understanding history, not understanding, you know, just, art, and even literature,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they just get these ideas, and they go on the internet, and it's some influencer, And it's not even people who have accredited. We live in an age where somebody can have a platform and
Yeah.
have more impact than a PhD
Mm-hmm.
and not be putting out really positive information.
Right. You know?
So like it's hard to deal with that. Like, how do you like do people like it doesn't seem like people respect people's intellect or their educational capability.
No.
They respect people like what is popular.
I
Like how
don't
much
even think it is disrespect. I think it is they themselves suffering from an incongruence because of how they were socialized that people of certain colors are supposed to be dumb. And then when you come out and you don't sound dumb to them, it was like, wait, what is going on? So it's more about them suffering from incongruence than being disrespectful. That's what
yeah.
has been my personal experience.
Yeah, it's
Like,
hard. It's
more like
like
ignorance.
ignorance. Yeah, well, ignorance is
Mhm.
bliss to a lot of
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like in the social like media world, it's like you can get a lot of views
Hmm.
saying very ignorant things.
Yes.
You can get a lot of likes.
Right.
You get and so the people who are like, you get like getting scientists getting fired,
Hmm.
intellectuals being suppressed
Right.
for political or power moves by certain voices.
Right.
So you've got
Because
voices that are just louder or more bullying than other people,
you
and because
got
they
it.
can
You
bully
got it.
people, they can get their voice louder because they bully.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you like? I know you're the founder of like Rainbow-Ono Sanctuary. What does that do? You help empower individuals and teams. So what do you do with that? Is that your coaching organization?
So that's my coaching organization on uh, on the physical, and then the website is on the virtual. So the
Hmm.
website you're showing is where I coach people virtually. They can take
Virtually.
courses there online. But Rainbow-Ono Sanctuary, as you can see,
Oh, right there.
is a physical place.
Oh, cool.
Yes, it's a physical place. And so I'm trying to make it global so that people can be coming here and we can have some fun time or on the land and doing immersive activities just so that people can learn. Like I keep saying, no
Like
one
a
can
retreat.
live your
Like a
life
retreat.
like a retreat
Hmm.
or like, even workshops.
Like a
And
seminar workshop type of thing.
yes, yes. So, or like the school districts, they can bring the kids here just to revive that, direct to perfect nature life.
So what were some of your platforms for your coaching methodology? Do you have certain like ethos or what are your primary goals?
So, my primary goal is to help people explore themselves and know themselves because we are not taught to do that. We are taught to study other things externally. But when it
Mm.
comes to knowing ourselves, we only focus on who am I, my name, which I didn't even participate in selecting, my
Yeah.
family, who some of them I don't even know, and maybe my career which I didn't even choose, somehow it chose me. you know so stuff that are really really external. And then when you look at science, it teaches us that we are now energy. They have finally acknowledged, yes, we are energy, but nobody teaches you how to realize, oh, so I am energy. Nobody teaches you to understand that breath is not just your nostrils. It's so important, your lungs, the whole body. it, it's about breath. Nobody
Mm.
teaches you the connection between your life and the food you're eating. So, and then most of us didn't grow choosing what to eat. You're given food, and mom insists it's what is on the table, eat, unless it makes you sick. And
Yeah.
luckily for me, some of it made me sick, and my mom had learned to tell me, everybody else can eat this, but don't eat this, Fredah, don't eat that, Fredah. And it was like, okay, I'll take that as in my life and I'll use it to widen my worldview. So when it comes to food, I'm deliberate about it because of the fact that that's how I grew up, being told I shouldn't eat certain things because they made me sick. And so from there, I taught my children I cannot dictate what they eat because I don't know if they're going through exactly what I was going through. And so it came also to my students. I don't want them taking my course just because it is on gen ed classes. I want you to deliberately choose to take my course because you know, even if it is not for your major, it's going to add value to your life. And so my life is quite deliberate in every aspect.
Yeah, it sounds like you've started to, like, go beyond the box. A lot of times people are kind of locked into the box, and I always
Exactly. I,
wanted to
I,
be
I
more
burst I
expansive.
burst my box a long time ago. And so when it comes to living life, that's why I say nobody can live life your life. You are the only one who knows it or should know it if you don't. And so I teach people self-knowledge, self-exploration, self-understanding beyond the physical.
More expansive, like a
Yeah,
more
more
expansive
expansive.
mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's hard because, like, people are so into narrow spaces today. I see people all the time talking about, like, you got to get in a niche, perfect that niche, and then kind of stay in it. And I've always been, I like to cross pollinate. Like, as a musician, I'm in multiple genres.
Yeah.
I can't just stay in one niche. But the kind of rule of thumb in, like, the industry is, if you're like in, like, if you're a bebop jazz guy, you stay in bebop. You don't go into fusion. You stay in it. Even though Miles Davis, yeah, went from bebop to fusion,
Right. And
right?
and it's the same thing with in my industry. If you're a teacher because you've been a student, if you're a teacher, they want you to be a teacher of a specific thing. And yet, as I expanded my worldview and expanded my knowledge of self, I realized I am an interdisciplinary kind of student. And so I actually struggled when I was doing my master's because I wanted to do something that was related to education, but it was also related to health. And the two colleges of College of Education and College of Health were two separate colleges.
Separate,
And
yeah.
therefore, I couldn't get a supervisor for my project because it was multidisciplinary.
Yeah,
So
they don't.
I talked to graduate college and I said, I'm a student here, I need help, and I'm going to get help. So finally, they gave me two advisors so
So they
that I
finally
could.
found a program that was in touch with where you wanted to go.
Exactly. And eventually they started doing that now for the whole college.
Well, that's the thing, is like cross pollination is kind of like I'm in my I have multiple hats. In my day job, I'm a software guy.
Hmm.
And software, we have to kind of relearn. Like, it keeps on exponentially growing. When I first started
Right.
in the 90s, it was all mainframes. Now we're into crypto AI. So I've
Exactly.
got multiple baselines of tech, and the
Yeah.
tech is exponentially growing. Like, every day, it's like new things coming up.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
kind of have to learn foundational changes all the time. So
Exactly.
you're in this industry, you're always a student.
I'm
You,
a
you
lifelong learner.
yeah, you have to. And the thing is, there's certain people, like, have jobs, they want to just, I want to know when I'm done. It's like you're not really done.
No.
It's like you could, it's like, if you just want to be on the assembly line,
Yeah.
just doing this one thing, the
Yeah.
world's getting, even on the assembly lines, they have it so they can do multiple cars on lines. Where
Right.
in the old days, they would have one car on a line.
Right.
Now you have lines that can do 10 different models. So now the
Or
workers have to be able to go between all those models, and they have to have a certain level of aptitude, where they couldn't just get into, like, I just know this, I just know that. No, you have to be able to
to
ramp
be
up.
able to know, many things. And then apart from that, even as they have that one car on the assembly, is just the shell. All the other parts have been outsourced and has been made by many other people out there.
Yeah, but
You
everywhere
know,
else, it's like, the car is coming from all these different sources. They're all
right?
these different each model could have very customized things. So it's
Hmm.
not just like the Model T or the Model A, you just put the same thing, same thing, same thing all day. No, that's not what
No,
it is.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
so that, in a world where there's some people having a hard time with this world,
right,
because, like, oh, I'm not done. I have to continually learn. That, like, the floor gets pulled out from under them, or they don't see it as an opportunity. They see, like, the floor gets pulled out from under, and they
exactly,
have nowhere to go. So then they
exactly.
get frustrated, and they don't know, like, what the next step should be.
And that's why I made it personalized, because when you personalize it, then you will know when you're done. because you're studying your intellect, you're studying your emotions, you're studying your thinking style, you're studying your communication style, you're studying your breathing, your digestion, your muscles. You will know when you're done. But
Mhm.
what is the end of that? There is no end of that learning, because if you take in, like, even just energy itself and how it works and how your body is like a powerhouse of all these energy spots, and learn from science that if you consolidated all those energy forces, you could power your own city where you come from, and it would blow your mind, and you would realize, oh, there's no end to learning. So you cannot say that I have completed my degree and therefore I am out going to the world to do work. No, then you will go there and find something else new that you need to learn.
Yeah, you're continually a student,
Yeah.
and you're like, to me, it's like the law of attraction. And
Uh-huh.
part of my hobbies, I'm a synthesist and I deal with sound waves. And I
Ah,
deal with like
perfect.
building frequencies from synthesizer oscillators. And we
Mm-hmm.
do like sine waves, square waves, pulse waves, ramp waves, and we can wavefold. But what I find as a musician,
Mm-hmm.
when a singer is singing on a frequency, and when you see a singer singing in a big festival,
Mm-hmm.
and you see that the crowd gets in tune and they're all got their lighters up, or they're all feel like he's hit this kind of universal key, this universal frequency that's actually like a harmonization of the whole crowd. And then you can have different levels of like harmony or disharmony, noise. You can have something that's more like danceable or funky. Like rhythms and frequencies can trigger human behavior. You know,
And I take that and I use it because every system in your body is at a certain frequency. If they're not in harmony and there's one that is off, then that is where disharmony and incongruence comes in. And that is where disease comes in,
yeah,
because there's lack of harmony. So music also teaches me about the harmony and the vibration of my body. And so when I'm teaching other people, then I also use sound harmonies, I use frequencies, I use energy healing. And now people start to understand, oh, so that's what Tai Chi is all about. Oh, so that's what yoga is all about, to
yeah,
teach you how to understand your own energy. Even when they tell you to rub your hands like that, they're just making you sensitive to understanding, oh, that's how energy in me works. So if my when we and people really know it, they just don't quite accept it, maybe, because like now we are vibing, right? And what is that? That's the short form of the word frequency
yeah,
and vibration. And so they keep saying, oh, I don't like your vibe. Mm. If you don't like my vibe, then you need to understand you're talking about my vibration. You're talking about my frequency. You're actually giving me feedback that something is off.
yeah.
That's why we are not,
In
vibing.
tune. Yeah, in tune.
Yeah,
Yeah, this idea. Well, I think a lot of times people, to me, as like you look at human history, like music was like the early form of language. It,
it
it,
is.
it, and it's still a language.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how, like, even when if you're a public speaker and you speak,
Yeah.
it's not that different than singing.
No.
And you can see that speakers over time and their frequency can lead to certain behavior. You
Right.
look at Stalin or Hitler and
Yeah.
their frequency, and like, well, what can trigger? You look at Martin Luther King or Gandhi, you see where that triggers. Or, you see,
And I'm glad you're bringing up the word language, because before language, there was sound. And we increased the frequencies of certain sounds and then used maybe like a collective rule of agreement that this, when it sounds like this, we are going to
remember
call it
this.
ba, and we are going to call it ma, and it's going to have this meaning. And it's the same thing. So when I'm speaking, I'm singing, but from a different kind of frequency and
Yeah.
vibration. And then if you increase that and then you give it tone, then it becomes the sound that you're dealing with in music.
Yeah, and it is like even when you talk, it can have a poetic like measure or
Right.
frequency, and
Yeah,
some people's oration is very poetic. Like you look at
exactly.
Martin Luther King's oration, it's very poetic.
Exactly.
It has
Exactly.
a frequency. It's almost like it's poetry. It's like music.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
when you get certain public speakers, they understand language and they understand poetry. They understand the measure and the frequency and the
Yeah.
beats and
Mm-hmm.
the way that you can carry across the meaning by the tone and the frequency and the imitate. And so actors know this. Actors do it all the time. You
And
know,
I was
singers.
lucky. I was lucky because my first degree was actually language, English and Kiswahili. And so when it comes to now understanding language and sounds and how they're put together, whether it is the phonemes and semantics, before we go to style and literature and poetry, just focusing on that, linguistic part of it,
Yeah.
it has really helped me even in communication, because I know if, for instance, I start talking with a tone or with a frequency that is like this, then I might bore people to death. But if I raise my frequency and I raise my
Yeah.
vibe, then everybody is upbeat
Yeah.
and they're happy and they will listen to me.
Yeah. If you have kind of a waveform that's going up and down and accentuating certain things and
Mm-hmm.
you build up, so you say really great orators, they
Right.
can build up
Yep.
like a symphony. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
look at like a Bach or Beethoven, they build up, they have crescendos, decrescendo, they do things that actually have a very musical aspect or poetic aspect to it. They
Yep.
allows their communication to actually have resonate more. And
Exactly.
and that's what
Exactly.
people have to understand is like so when
Mm-hmm.
you talk, you should be very mindful of your words. And so
Yes.
there's very people today say, "Oh, words don't mean anything." Like, really?
No, words are very powerful. I might not even understand the meaning, but it's the frequency, the vibration. And once it hits you, it has effect on you. So
Yeah.
if we are energy, any other impact that is also energy on you will also have an impact on you. And so
And
that's why self-leadership becomes very important, because you now can explore yourself, understand yourself, and live your life according to how you understand it, and be able to be a better version of yourself and help other people as well be a better version of themselves. It's like the first song you wrote. If you were to revise it and write another version, it would be a better version than the previous version.
yeah, but
Yes.
this incrementally gets better. But self
Mm-hmm.
leadership is real important because it seems like there's a lot of uh people who are just like cloning or xeroxing like like the vibe. Like instead of trying to be uniquely individualistic, everybody says they want to be individual, but I see a lot of copycatting, a lot of cloning, a lot of not actually trying to find your own voice,
Yeah.
but mirror other people's voices.
And
And it's
that's
like,
what I try to help people to find. Those ones who haven't found their voice, I help them find their voice and find the passion or whatever it is they want to talk about or be, because of the fact that, like you're saying, it's, we want to fit in. That's the real problem. And you've been in Japan. Anybody who tries to stick out, you get hammered in,
yeah, they
because they want uniform. That is even the philosophy behind school uniform. They want everybody to be the same. That's the philosophy behind parades. They want everybody to be the same. So, and then when it comes to speaking, I've been told many times, you're not American enough because you're not speaking American English. And I keep trying to tell them, well, I made the effort to at least speak English. It's not my language. I speak 9 other languages that are not English.
yeah,
But nobody
the
will give me
simulation.
credit for all the other languages, but they'll give me grief for not speaking American English. And then when I'm in Europe, I'm being given grief that, why are you speaking like that? Don't say water, say water.
Well, yeah, everybody's got their own pet peeve
Yeah,
about how the assimilation is always like, the idea of like a melting pot when I think it's like, why does it have to be a melting pot?
right.
Why can't people still maintain their individual like culture?
Mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm.
like it's this idea like, well, so what your idea is like everything should be Eurocentric and you can't have and the thing is like I'm part Blackfoot and Cherokee Indian,
Mm-hmm.
and our the Native American cultures in America were pushed down and made to not want value. They have value in their own culture, but the culture was like thought of as being not worth anything. And people go to like to Japan and they go to the East, and Native American cultures had the same mindsets, the same kind of mindset. Like you go to people go to Tibet, they go
Yeah.
to all these
And,
places
and
looking
yet
for a
it's right
mindset.
here.
That mindset exists in the Incas, in the Cherokee, and like it was here. You
Yeah.
don't have to go there to
Yeah.
find it.
Mhm. But those were the days when the culture and the philosophy was that one of bullying, very narcissistic, where when something is different and you don't want it, then you made it a negative and you made it bad and you gave it bad rep. And because, like we were saying earlier, they had the media, they had the power to do that, and so they misused it. And now people are starting to reevaluate that. And that's also something else I help people, rediscover themselves, rediscover their past, and realize we are all just one race, humans. And I ask it as if it's a joke, and people laugh that where is your nose? Whether you're green, blue, yellow, or whatever your color, your nose is going to be right there. I haven't seen a human whose nose is anywhere else. So if we have that in common, can we begin there?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. There's everybody's so caught up in the differences. It's always like so staggering.
Right.
The level of like ignorance that has to happen. That happens like just for people to realize that emotionally, that you can like in America, sometimes people don't feel understand the a pain threshold. Like, yeah, doctors thinking like African Americans can deal with more pain, than Europe, than
Yeah. Yeah.
so they allowing us to go through pain and thinking that we could handle it because Darwinist scientific Darwinism,
Yeah. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
mindset that is still like taught where
It
people
is.
don't get under an understanding, and then our healthcare outcomes are because of this reliance on a mindset that's even tried to be built into the science, and then
And
you have to
yet,
fight
as they're
against that.
right, and even as they're trying to build it into the science, they are also finding that they, part of themselves cannot actually agree with it because whenever I don't want to use the word dissected, but whenever they conducted surgery on any human with their noses over here and 32 teeth over here, they realized the blood was always red.
Yeah.
There was no difference. The blood was always red. The nose was always there. The teeth, unless you had removed your wisdom, was still 32 for a human. And so they started to also question their own line of thinking. And that is why Darwinism is no longer as popular as it used to be. And also, when it comes to looking at intelligence, they had hidden a lot of intelligent, people that are not white. And, Eurocentricity had made that possible. But then these days we are opening up
Yeah,
and
we have access to all the information we find.
exactly. And all the can of worms are open. We are even celebrating the women who helped put the men on the moon.
Yeah, well, there are scientists, mathematicians that were
Yes.
cross-checking, the calculations in the computers, who were
Yep.
minorities,
Yep.
and we had, code breakers. Native Americans were code breakers in World War
Mm-hmm.
II,
Yep.
doing the cryptography. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many inventors that
So
were
many
not,
inventors that were
yeah,
not recorded, but when
yeah,
you go to the patent office,
you
then
find
you
them.
realize, oh, this was actually for a person who was not white.
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah,
refrigerated, like it's something simple, like refrigerated
the
um
cotton gin.
trucks did have refrigeration. It was
Yeah,
invented by like an African American guy.
yeah,
It's like
even medicine, or even their favorite whiskey.
yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can go down the line, but they
Yeah.
want to act like it's like somehow the mental
Mm-hmm.
capacity is not there, so
Yeah.
you be an engineer, you can't
Mm-hmm.
be a scientist, you can't be
Yeah.
working aerospace, and you
Yeah.
still have people that have that mindset, and you have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem fighting in terms of pushing to get hurt or
Yeah.
pushing. It's just kind of it wears you down a little bit that you have to spend so much time But it's like I'm not going to give up because I live in the spaces where, like I said, I'm in IT. But I
Yeah.
find a lot of young people that entry because they make it so hard and because they don't see other people like them,
Mm-hmm.
they don't go there because
Right.
if they
Right.
don't see somebody that looks like them, they don't feel comfortable. And
And
my father was one of the generations, like he was a business guy and he got to be a manager. He was the
mhm.
only black guy who was a manager. Now,
Mm.
some people in his neighborhood said, "Well, how can you do that?
Right.
Don't you feel uncomfortable?" It's like, well, somebody's got you got to be kind of that trailblazer, and it is not comfortable.
It
To
is
not
uncomfortable. And I decided to be comfortable in being a trailblazer because of what you're just saying. You go to spaces where you're feeling, motivated or, passionate about, and you find that it's a space that you have to navigate a certain way. And I decided, like I was saying, as if it's a joke, I decided I belong here as long as everybody, when I look at them, their eyes, their noses, they look like me.
yeah,
So color wasn't going to ever be my point of reference.
yeah.
I
That's
am
hard.
exactly. And when you remove color, nothing else is different. And
Yeah,
so,
just trying to get that mindset with some of the
yeah,
young people, it's
and,
still
and-
hard to
right. And
get them
so,
because they've been so, a lot of people like to stay in their comfort zone.
no, I don't like comfort zone. That's not where I grow. I grow in my stretch zone. And in my
Mhm.
stretch zone, color doesn't mean a thing. It's the sun's effect on me. So I don't really care. So I want to do what I want to do. I want to learn what I want to learn. Nobody can live my life and nobody can tell me what to think or what not to think. And so I gave myself that freedom. And when I teach, I also teach from that place. And I
Of
allow my
course.
students, by the way, I used to tell my students that we are classmates because we're in that room together. We are studying the same syllabus, we are studying
Yeah.
the same books. So we are classmates. Only I'm the one who gives the test. I don't take the test. So that was fun.
Well, I think that it's important because if you make people you have to have a certain level of comfort with discomfort, even as a
Yeah.
creative. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, as a creative person, like you can get lazy and keep on doing the same thing that's always worked.
Hmm.
But it's always harder to push the envelope
Yeah.
and move from like bebop to jazz or move to
Hmm.
classical when you were doing jazz or move into progressive, move into different genres where you weren't maybe the best.
Right.
Maybe it's not your wheelhouse, but
And
like that pushing it actually helps you learn, helps you.
exactly. And it helps you grow. And it helps you even become a better person and be able to actually accommodate and understand other people because you come from that place of seeing difference as opportunities for growth, seeing your own what people call weaknesses. I don't see them as weaknesses, I see them as opportunity for growth for me. And so when I help people reflect, when I help people think about themselves, when I help people become lifelong learners like me, then they start to see, oh my gosh, I had never thought about life from that perspective. I had never even looked at myself from that perspective. That usually really, really humbles me and brings tears to my eyes when someone says it is about them and they had never thought about themselves that way. And yet you live with yourself every day and you've never thought about yourself in that way. So that is really what motivates me every day to speak, whether it is on social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever, and when I get gigs, because I want people to start appreciating themselves. Because you cannot appreciate me if you don't appreciate yourself.
I think it's important for people to have like permission structure to
Hmm.
actually speak their voice. Because like if you're like I always love professors that actually had open conversations and allowed the room to actually have a discussion from different points of view. Where
Oh
I
my
had some
gosh.
professors that had this very top-down approach and everything had to come from
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And other people, professors that said, I want to hear what your opinion is. How do you see this? Right. Versus like only way to see it is through
yeah.
this lens.
You've really made my day because I used to teach my Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I'd teach on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday was open mic Wednesday. And so I used to teach again by like project management. So each group was working on one of the problems we wanted to solve in the class. I never taught like a whole one general topic. So I would come at the beginning of the semester, and based on what we were studying, we would look at world problems. And then it's like, if you want to solve this problem, sit over there. If you want to solve this other problem, sit over there. So therefore, when I came to teach in the class, even if it was PhD class, it was always as if I'm teaching a multi-grade class. We are solving world problems. But there was always open mic Wednesday. And that day, group one can ask group 4 questions about their project. They can ask me. They can talk among themselves. That was the day I hardly talked.
Well, that's interesting. I think that's really good to have that cross collaboration, because
Right.
when you're in a narrow lane, people don't really push the envelope, because like they're so close to it that they aren't going to ask the question. If somebody's outside of that lane and they walk in, they're going to say, well, what's that mean? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Why is that? Everybody else will say, what's obvious?
Yeah.
Well, to this other person, it's not obvious.
No.
And so then you start to press it. You start to test your theorem. You start to say, is it as clear cut as you thought?
Yes.
Does it actually solve the problem you thought?
Right.
Maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it
And
doesn't.
yeah,
And that's why I loved flipping the classroom, flipping the pedagogy, because most of my colleagues would not allow their students to come in with their phones or laptops in class. While for me, I knew whether I tell them not to or I allow them, they were going to sneak them in and they would be jamming them. So what I would do is tell them, remove your phones, remove your laptops, put them on the desk. And when I ask you a question, if you don't know it, Google it. Either using your phone or your laptop. And I also used to work with the lab that had extra laptops. So I would book those extra laptops, bring them to class in case a student didn't have a laptop and didn't have a phone. And so I would simply say, if we are solving problem X, and I'm not there because I'm not the one solving the problem, because you're the future leaders. I will not be there when you're solving future problems. I'm the one creating problems for you now. You're the one who will be solving them in future. So Google it. So today, maybe I would say chat GPT it.
Yeah. A lot of times, because I mean, in business today, we do use the AI to kind of help our development. Not that we're going to use it to do everything, but we kind of stress test and we ask, like, it's prompt engineering. And really, the way the AI works is you can't just assume. Like, the problem with AI that I would point out is it gives you a better answer than a Google search. And a lot of times
apart from that, all I wanted was the attention of my students.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't allow them to thumb through their phones or their computers, they're still going to do it. But now they're doing it with structure, with guidance, and with a purpose. Because now we are solving a world problem. We're just looking for information. We are not even going to use that maybe to do our final paper or write, a test. But at that particular time, we are looking for data. We are looking for information. And which is the best way to do it? Either go to the library, and because I can't send them to the library at that particular point, then I would tell them to Google it, or log in into the library from their laptop and look for articles.
Yeah, I think it's important what I'm saying in terms of like doing research, like with anything, is like being able to cite something, be able to like kind of prove where you got it from.
Exactly.
And then verify whether or not it's actually accurate. The problem I would say with some of the AI is it gives a really good answer.
Yeah.
And sometimes like you can't cite where it came from. It doesn't give you the good notation of like where are the where's the evidence,
right,
and who is the person this came from. Where
Yeah.
like a good research paper, you have your footnotes and your endnotes, and you
Hmm.
say you came from this, and it's this page, and this came from this article, it comes this year. So you can check the
Right.
citing and make sure it's accurate.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can
So,
get a little lazy with some of the new tech. It'll
mhm.
give you an answer and not give you the full citation, and you do want people to have that.
Yeah. But the advantage now is when I told my students to Google it, they would find at least a general guideline so that now when they go to the library, they have a start point. So
Yeah, starting point. Yeah, I agree.
Just like AI today, it would be able to give me a guideline so that I can go to the library and find the correct article so that I can do a proper citation.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
the educational capability, like getting an
Right.
education, is the rigor of knowing that you have to cite it. The
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you've got to have the endnotes and the footnotes, where
Yes.
sometimes in people who maybe don't get the rigor or
Yeah.
don't know the process, like a scientific method, like in a
Yeah.
scientific method, you have to prove your theorem, you have to prove it, you have to
Yes.
show the evidence, and then maybe you can prove that it doesn't work. Maybe prove that this theory is not correct anymore.
Yeah.
But you've gone through that method and it's agreed upon that this is the baseline,
Yeah.
so that people know that this is actually accurate. I would say
Exactly.
today, in today's world, there's a fuzzy line now where people are pushing out info
Mm-hmm.
that's not been validated.
True. True.
And
True.
that is very concerning because like we have to build on a baseline of
Yeah.
like of what is actually accurate and what is not.
Yeah, and that's the researcher's work. And so I taught my students to be researchers. Don't just tell me this is the solution of the problem when you don't know about it. So find all the information you need or use all the resources, whether you're using your phone or your laptop, find all the resources, go to the library, and then let's solve world problems.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just do it from a base that actually you can accurately represent and is factual
Hmm. Hmm.
instead of just being kind of a
Yeah,
uh,
and I wish most of the citizens could do the same thing, where instead of just following what hearsay or what news is telling you, find out, use news as your
a
bouncing ball,
starting point. Yeah,
as your
yeah, just
starting
start.
point, and then go and do your own research. And now, when you speak, you're speaking from a very informed position.
Yeah, cause like when you see a really good like lecture or people talking,
Hmm.
like they'll cite authors.
Right.
They'll say that this author said, and they'll have a quote. And really, like people who are in the that kind of space,
Hmm. Hmm.
they're given like the TED Talks or given like a well like a learned talk,
Right.
is that they will have a lot of quotes
Hmm.
in their back pocket, and
Yeah.
they have a lot of books or articles where they came from, and they know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've done the work. The problem
Yeah.
I have is we're living in an age where there's a lot of people who haven't done the work,
And they don't want to do the work.
and they don't want to work, and they're just
No,
putting out
and
things
and
and
that's what
being
and that's
given.
what I didn't want in my any of my classes, whether it was undergrad, whether it was high school, whether it was graduate school. I didn't want that. I wanted my students to put in the work so that even as I'm giving them the projects to work on, at the end of the semester when they're writing that paper, they're not writing it academically. They're writing it from a lived experience, but within an academic environment. And
Mhm.
so they would write perfect papers, with citations, because that's, the structure. But when they're telling the stories, they're telling the stories of what they did, how they did it, how they
Yeah,
experienced it.
that's a different. Yeah, it's a different tool set. Like to be able to
Yeah.
put it in your own words
Mm-hmm.
and to give like lived experience and the
Mm-hmm.
critical thinking. There's a certain level where it's just like how you've absorbed it, you've learned it.
Yeah.
It's not a direct citation like a research paper,
Right.
you know. But
we,
there's
we, we still we still need another researcher to kind of beef up what we are talking about, and so I would also help them add that, but I want it as personalized as possible.
mhm.
This is the
Yeah, it's
problem
like
you are solving. How are you solving it? Why are you solving it? How did you identify it? And then who else is solving such a problem, so that if you were to collaborate, because my classes always had to be collaborative. So,
mhm.
and with the leadership had to be transformative of the team leads. So who else in the academic world has studied that problem?
Oh,
And
so you
then
can get a group together because everything
exactly.
is like people, you know, it seems like a lot of people think they're just like Horatio Alger methods, like they're just doing it all by themselves.
No,
But everything is very collaborative,
we
right?
wouldn't be 8 billion on this planet if we had to do all by ourselves.
Yeah, the
That's
whole
why we are
point
this
is that you got to
many.
find your you
Yes,
find law of attraction, you find your crowd, you find
find
the
your
people that
crowd.
resonate with you, and you
Yes,
find the people that are in this, and even if they have a different point of view, right? So you
yes.
could, like, if you could have people have opposing views, but they're in this, they're still trying to get at a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have like two scientists trying to get to fusion. Somebody could
Exactly.
have a point of view that they're going to do it like cold fusion, they're going to do a hot fusion. One guy said, well, this is better than that. And they're going to both go at parallel.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the same space trying to get the fusion, but they're doing it two different ways, two approaches. It's not one is wrong or right. Just like, let's see which one goes out, which one wins, which one gets there faster.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's not about competition. It's about solving a world problem,
yeah,
or
with
whatever it
energy.
is we are creating, or bringing new knowledge to the world. When we collaborate, then the piece, like the music we were talking about, becomes more harmonious, so that
Yeah.
it is not homogeneous but very harmonious. It becomes melodious.
Yeah. Well, also, it's like you have something that can speak to people. Like if you
Hmm.
write a piece, like, you think of like a Bob Marley. He
Right.
wrote music that really spoke to people. It had you created like that reggae. He created that tone. He
Hmm.
created like a subgenre that was very
Yes.
like the Wailers had this subgenre
Yeah.
that was super unique. And it came, and it's like it's a vibe. And it's like it's today is like the gold standard of that genre.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
if there are other people that can do it, but that still is like the gold standard. Like you get like a Hendrix, he's like the gold standard of that. You get like Stevie Wonder, he was like the gold standard of this. But there's people in the space. You got Curtis Mayfield, you got all kinds of people
Hmm.
that could
Hmm.
bounce on Sunrise. You got all kinds of artists that are in same spaces, but they're all pulling from each other.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
see, like a lot of artists will cross pollinate. Fusion was
Yeah.
this cross pollination of rock,
Yeah.
bebop, and fusion, and some classical aspects. Is
Yeah.
the kind of like so a lot of times when you cross genre,
Hmm.
you get this new thing,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm always looking for. Is that people you cross genre in terms of thought, like take some like dogma
Yeah.
and challenge it. It's like, is that really true? Is this really a real notion, or is it? Or could
Yeah.
you actually poke holes in it?
Yeah.
And
So
are you going to get upset if you
collaboration,
do?
collaboration, and living together and working together.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super important because everybody wants to kind of, have their little camp
Hmm.
and say, this is the best and this is the only way.
There is no one way. There is no
Yeah.
one way, because, like, even when it comes to learning, as a teacher myself, I have taught so many students. I've lost count. Each one of them has their own unique way of learning. Even
Mhm.
those ones who learn, visually, even those ones who are tactile, they have their own different variations.
Process. Yeah. Everybody
So,
has their own process.
right.
Everybody's looking for the quick hit, like the
Yeah.
secret. That's like,
Hmm.
what's the one way? What's like, well,
There's
there
no
might be,
one way.
yeah, there might be
There's
an
no one way.
amalgamation of multiple aspects.
Exactly. And
And
that's
that's where
why,
people,
nature, if you were to learn from perfect nature, which is what Rainbow-Ono Sanctuary tries to do, that's why you find all sorts of diversity. And
mhm.
because of that, then it tells us that there is no one way. Because
Yeah,
even the same plant, when you plant it in different environments,
it
it
behaves
shows up,
different.
it shows up very differently.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go in the
Yeah.
forest, it might look homogeneous,
Right.
but when you really start looking at it, it's super diverse.
Super different.
Yeah, it's like there's so
Yeah.
much diversity in
Yeah.
every inch of what's going on.
Exactly.
The
And I
fungus and
use that, and it also informs my pedagogy, my instruction style, my design style, because of the diversity. Because when I'm teaching students, I want to respect that, uniqueness of each one of them. I'm not going to be teaching, like as if I'm not teaching in a class, but I'm going to bear that in mind and accommodate it, even as I'm designing, as I'm delivering, as I'm evaluating. All that has to come together for my pedagogy to be successful.
Well, that's like the not like the going against like the one size fits all to more
No,
personalized, like what your website is like this personalized life coaching.
exactly. So that
And I think,
even if I'm coaching someone, or even if I'm doing a group coaching, I'm still bearing in mind that each individual is there, only that we have been grouped together, but we are still unique, each one of us. That's why we call ourselves personalized life coaching.
yeah, I think that's the age we're living in is like we came from like an assembly line kind of that kind of process where
Yeah,
now people are realizing that people want very personalized products. So this
exactly.
idea of like the same thing, people don't want the same thing. They
No.
want something that's very personalized. So even within the assembly processes today, people get very specialized
Mhm.
aspects. The more specialized you can be with your product,
Yeah, we are
that
very
the
far
more
away today. We are very far away today from the black car.
yeah.
These days,
Yeah.
you can get your car whatever color you want.
Doing what black like that, but your car is like whatever you want it to be,
Yeah.
and it can get even more specialized in the future. It's going to be even more like
Hmm.
off. Like everybody can have, people like design, like Ferrari level design
Hmm.
aspects in future things
Yeah.
coming in the next decades.
Yeah.
You're going to see
Yeah.
even more individualization in all kinds of product lines across the board, and even in like education
Yeah.
and, people aren't gonna be getting these cookie cutter things.
No,
People
no
are gonna
more
get
cookie
very
cutters.
yeah,
No more cookie cutters.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's really important. I mean, it's a big opportunity. Some people get scared of
Of course.
things that are new because, like,
Hmm.
this is an age where it's very disruptive, the things that are going on. There's a
Yeah.
lot of disruption
Yeah.
and a lot of the systems that we're used to
And
because things
AI is a great contributor of that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
where we are now no longer cookie cutters.
Yeah, well, it's just you can look at it as an advantage. Like you can go and have a very unique micro level business. I've seen
Hmm.
people with a 3D printer can go and create a micro level product
Yeah.
development
Hmm.
company with like 2, 3, 4 people.
Yeah.
That would have took 10, 15, 20, 50 people 10, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
then there's opportunities to do things. And
Yeah.
then in terms of thought, people who are thought leaders can get their book out, their memoir out, their webinar out, their
Hmm.
classes out, and start doing it.
Yep.
And so there's nothing stopping you from being like the next TED Talk TED speaker.
No.
You
No.
can be out there if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah. Like ages before, who would have thought that teenagers could be millionaires or billionaires? Because you are expected to have grown up and then become an adult, and then in your job, you are supposed to put in as many years before you can make good money. But these days, just kids are playing around with cryptos and becoming billionaires. People are playing with AI and becoming billionaires even before they hit 30 years old.
Yeah, because you can
Yeah.
come up with a concept or a process,
Hmm.
and suddenly it's like you're making money from it, and they're not necessarily coming from MIT, coming
No,
from Carnegie Mellon. It's
no.
like if you because some of the great inventors they didn't go to those
They didn't
schools.
go to those elite schools. No, they did
Yeah,
not.
so it's the mindset. If you have the ability to think, and you
Yeah.
have the ability to be like that inventive mindset.
Hmm.
And that inventive mindset doesn't have to be somebody's a mechanical mindset. You
And
can be
that's
like,
why
you know,
I'm encouraging everybody to do self-exploration through self-leadership. Because when you do self-exploration, you're taking inventory of your skills, of what you can do, and you're not allowing limitations to cloud your thinking or your imagination. Like who thought that gaming would now become part of education? It was something we used to call after school or
yeah,
extra part of school. But now it is embedded in school. It is embedded in any learning, situation. And now gaming is one of the biggest industries. It's a multi-billionaire industry.
yeah. I mean, there are young kids who get into it, and they can be a developer or a designer. My
Yes.
my daughter is like an artist, and she's an art major, and she's doing her own like art like virtual art forums for disabled
Wow.
artists around the world. And she's pulling together her skill set. And she's been working as an artist since she was like 8 years old.
Imagine that.
And people always say, well, you can't make money from art. But now she's actually being
Exactly.
funded
They
in
even
her
traumatized.
passion.
They even traumatized artists so that people didn't want to become artists. Oh, I don't want to become a starving artist. And yet today, those are the people who are making billions, not even millions, billions.
Yeah, you can. My daughter is starting to do very well,
Mhm.
and she's able to do what she's passionate about.
Yeah.
She's like a working artist,
And
which
she's lucky to have you because you understand and so you're supporting.
yeah, because like there's
Yeah.
some people in the family that say, well, how's she gonna make money doing that? It's like, well, that's what she believes in, and I believe in her.
Yeah.
So it's like that's if you're supportive,
Hmm.
then people. But if you make people feel like it's not the right thing,
Yeah.
then you make it harder for them. I didn't want to make it harder for because I'm an artist myself. So it's
Right.
like so yeah, I understand what it's like. So I was like, yeah, I wanna give her the
Yeah.
opportunity to go
Because
further than I did,
yeah.
and that's what you want. But I wanna thank you for being on the show. It always goes by quicker than we ever imagined, but we do
Yeah.
have your website,
Yes.
the personalizedlifecoaching.com. It'll be fully clickable. I'm not gonna speak the whole thing, but you'll be able to click on that on the podcast platforms that we're on. We've been on Facebook and YouTube. We will be on Spotify and Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast by tomorrow. We'll
Okay.
create a landing page for everybody to check out, and
Yes.
we will push this on our TikTok, our YouTube Shorts, and we'll also push it on our Substack. So you'll get all the links by
Hmm.
tomorrow, and I'll send them to you, and people can just check out the platform or wherever place they feel comfortable listening or watching podcasts.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. See you soon.